Hi and welcome back to SceneWeaver. In the last tutorial, we looked at 3 different ways to start a writing project. We started with different parts of a project and showed that, regardless of where you begin, SceneWeaver allows the project to develop naturally towards a complete manuscript. In this tutorial, we're going to return to our mature project. We will look at how a project becomes easier to navigate as it grows, and then spend some time exploring the corkboard. The corkboard gives us a different way of viewing and working with the structure of our manuscript. So let's open the mature project and get started. This is the Ashcombe Manor Mystery project we briefly looked at in the previous tutorial. Unlike our 3 starting examples, this project already contains a developed manuscript structure. We have chapters, scenes and sections, along with several thousand words of written content. As a manuscript grows, there's naturally more information to keep track of. When I'm writing a particular scene, I might be completely focused on what's happening in that moment. But that doesn't necessarily give me a clear view of the manuscript as a whole. From the structure, I can navigate through the chapters, the scenes and the sections of my manuscript, and the colours also give me a quick indication of the current status of each part of the project. We'll come back to those statuses shortly. For now, let's look at another way of reviewing this structure. I'm going to open the corkboard. I can do that by pressing F5. The first thing to understand is that these aren't separate planning cards. The corkboard is showing the actual structure of our SceneWeaver project. The node currently in focus is highlighted in blue. Its immediate children are displayed alongside it in yellow. At the moment, the manuscript itself is in focus, so I can see the chapters directly beneath it. If I click one of these chapters, that chapter becomes selected. I can also select the parent node. The description for the selected node is shown at the bottom of the corkboard. If I double click one of the chapters, that chapter becomes the new focus. We can now see its immediate children. In this case, those are the scenes contained within the chapter. If I double click a scene that contains sections, I can move further down and see what's in those sections. This allows me to explore the hierarchy of the manuscript visually. Reducing the size allows me to see more of the structure at once. The corkboard is not intended to replace the project structure. It's just another way of looking at the same information. I can use the structure when I want a hierarchical view of the entire manuscript, or move to the corkboard when I want to focus visually on a particular part of the project and its immediate children. Let's select one of our chapters. At the bottom of the corkboard we can see its description. This can be edited directly from the corkboard. I can't change the title here, but I can update the description as the project develops. For example, the original purpose of the chapter or scene may change as I write. Rather than opening each part of the manuscript individually, I can move through the corkboard and review or update these descriptions. The descriptions are also shown directly on the cards. This means I can get a quick overview of what each chapter, scene or section is intended to contain. You can also add a label colour to individual parts of the manuscript. Right click on there, set label colour and choose the colour you wish it to be. I'll have this one orange, and when I assign a colour, a colour bar is added at the top of the card. SceneWeaver doesn't dictate what these colours mean. I might use them to identify different points of view. I could use them for, say, different story threads, locations, timelines, or any other distinction that is useful for my project. The important thing is that the colour has meaning to me as the writer. Once those labels are in place, they provide a quick visual reference when I'm looking across the corkboard. Each part of the manuscript also has a status. SceneWeaver automatically marks a node as to do when it contains no written content. So I've created a chapter 2 with nothing in it, and you can see it shows us to do. As soon as I add content to a to do node, SceneWeaver automatically changes its status to draft. So if we go back to editing, select the new chapter, make any content, and then go back to the corkboard, you see it's now showing as draft. I'm going to delete that one because we don't need that one in our project. That was only added to as an example. So remove chapter, yes. And let's get back to our corkboard. So I don't need to manually tell SceneWeaver that I've started writing it. It knows already. From there, I can change the status to revised. There we go, status revised. When I've worked through the content again, and when I'm satisfied that this part of the manuscript is complete, I can mark it as final. So if we look at the project structure, the colour of the node also changes to reflect the status. So if I select that to final, you can see that that chapter now shows as final. And it's highlighted green by default. So let's mark that as back to under review. Sorry, draft, not review. There we go. So a status change made while I'm working at the corkboard is visible elsewhere in the project. Again, we're not manipulating two different versions of our manuscript. The corkboard and project structure are working with the same information. The corkboard also displays the word count for each node in the bottom left corner. This gives me a quick indication of how much content has been written without opening each part of the manuscript. I can also add an individual word target. Right click and set word target. Word targets can be set for the manuscript, for chapters, scenes and sections. I don't have to use them, but if I'm working towards a particular manuscript length, or I have an approximate idea of how large a chapter or scene should be, I can add a target and compare that with the current word count. Because each node can have its own target, I can use these as broadly or precisely as I want. The corkboard isn't limited to viewing the existing manuscript. I can also add new scenes and sections directly from here by simply right-clicking and selecting Add Scene. Say yes, and then if you go into the chapter, see that there's a new scene created. And then I can right-click and delete the scene. So, if while reviewing a chapter, I realise another scene is required, I can add it without leaving the corkboard. Likewise, I can add a new section where I need to divide part of the scene into smaller pieces. These become actual parts of the manuscript structure. If I return to the project structure, the new scene or section is already there. I can open it and begin writing as normal, and this allows the structure of the manuscript to continue developing while I'm reviewing it visually. As I showed, I can also delete scenes and sections from the corkboard. If part of the planned manuscript is no longer required, I can select it and remove it. As this changes the actual manuscript structure, this isn't the same as simply removing a planning card from a board. We're working with the project itself, so as with any structural change, I need to make sure I'm deleting the correct part of the manuscript. This is one of the ideas I want to emphasise throughout these tutorials. The project structure, manuscript editor and corkboard aren't isolated parts of SceneWeaver. They're different ways of working with the same project. I can use this project structure to navigate the hierarchy of my manuscript. I can use the manuscript editor when I'm writing, and I can use the corkboard when I want a more visual view of a particular part of the manuscript and the nodes directly beneath it. Changes made in one part of SceneWeaver are reflected throughout the project. As the manuscript grows, I can move between these different views depending on what I'm working on. In this tutorial, we've returned to our mature project and taken a closer look at the corkboard. We've seen how to navigate through the manuscript structure, review and edit descriptions, add label colours, track the status of your writing, view word counts and targets, and add or remove scenes and sections. More importantly, we've seen that the corkboard isn't a separate planning system. It's another way of viewing and working with the same SceneWeaver project. In the next tutorial, we'll continue with this mature project and look at how entities such as characters and locations interact with the content of your manuscript. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.